Hi guys, my name is Kudzie Mapiye and welcome. On this channel, I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. This video is a part 2 of international students in Australia video. I did part 1. If you haven't watched part 1, please, it is the video before this one. Please go back and watch that one first and then come back and watch this one, because this one is just a continuation of that video. Now, I was talking about things that parents and students need to look out for if they're coming to live in Australia. And part 1, I covered financial sustainability when choosing Australia as a study option. In this video, I want to talk about parents mostly. This is mostly for parents. Now, this is about if you have relatives in Australia, if you're a parent and you've got a child and you want them to come and study in Australia, and you're giving yourself assurance that, I've got relatives in Australia, they can be able to take care of my child for me. Let me tell you, I have heard horror stories here in Australia. And by the way, this video is focusing on international students from African countries, like it was for part 1. So I have heard some horror stories about students who come from African countries and they come and stay with relatives, and their parents assume that these relatives are going to take on the full responsibility of being a parent to this child, and they're going to meet all their needs. Guys, if you have a child, if you have a relative, it doesn't matter how good your relative is, life in Australia is extremely difficult, especially if they've got a family of their own. They most likely cannot afford to sustain your child as well. Even they might be a well-meaning relative, they might be a kind, good relative, but they just don't have the means to take care of your child financially. Please do not assume that your relatives in Australia are going to look out for your child the way you would, or the way people look out for children when they're in Africa. Like, you can send your child to a relative and that relative can take care of all the costs, they can cover all their bills, you don't have to worry about food. Food in Australia is expensive. Even one extra mouth, especially if that one extra mouth is an adult, let me tell you, those bills start to add up. Even water bills, electricity bills, one extra adult in a household can make the bills skyrocket. So if you've got relatives, please make sure that you also send them some money to help with the maintenance of your child. Don't just assume that they're going to take care of everything. That, my aunt, I've got a sister, I've got a little sister, I've got an auntie in Australia, go and stay with them and they'll look after you, they'll provide you with accommodation. I have heard horror stories of students that have been living with relatives, and those relatives have not been giving them food. Those relatives have been treating them very, very, very poorly. They have been emotionally abused. Some of them have been verbally abused by these relatives. So it will crush your child's spirit. Let me tell you, please, if a child is yours, take care of that child. That child is your responsibility. No one else can look after that child the way you can. So please, if you have the means, do not put your child's responsibility, the care of your child, on the responsibility of somebody else. They have their own family. It's already hard enough here in Australia, and we've got a cost of living crisis. I have done videos about this, the cost of living crisis in Australia. Things are very, very expensive. So people find it very difficult to feed an extra mouth in the household. So please, if you have a child and you want them to come to Australia, make sure that you have a plan for yourself on how they're going to be sustained. Yes, you can stay with relatives, if that's an option, but make sure you are contributing something towards the bills in that household. Don't just assume they'll cover all the bills, because there are kids who have been doing it very, very tough. And sometimes, they're not children because they're adults, but sometimes with let me say younger adults, when they come to study and stuff, and they're staying in a relative's house, some of them, they find it really, really difficult to open up to their parents about a relative who's treating them poorly, because they don't want to ruin the relationship, or it's just a bit tricky to navigate if they know that relative is, viewed well by their parent. It's just very, very tricky, and sometimes people don't always tell you. If you're a parent, your child might not even tell you what they're going through. So please, please, please make sure you are covering and you're contributing towards the cost of their sustenance while they are here in Australia. The last thing that I want to cover, and this one, guys, this one's a big one. The last thing that I want to cover when it comes to African international students who come to study in Australia, guys, there are wolves, wolves here in Australia. And what I mean by wolves is they are very predatory men who are in Australia. Yes, they are predatory men who prey on the vulnerabilities of African international students. They take advantage of them, and they get into relationship with them, and some of them are married people. Some of them, they just don't have, most of them, like the predatory people, they can be married people, and they prey on vulnerabilities of international students. Because as you can imagine, as I shared in part 1, it is very difficult financially for international students in this country. This word goes around in the African communities, and then opportunistic men sharpen their little teeth and they come hunting for these vulnerable students. I know of stories where married men have preyed on the vulnerabilities of international students, wanting to offer them accommodation, food. They know that they might be lacking financially, so they come because they're already settled in Australia. They already have jobs. Their jobs are probably high paying, so they know that they've got something to offer financially to these students. And even if these students don't want to be in a relationship with a married person, a predatory person, some of them, out of necessity, out of just the instinct to survive, they find themselves in these situations with these men. And some of them, like, they end up being impregnated, they end up just being in toxic relationships and all that. So these are things that can happen to your children if they come to Australia and they do not have the financial stability, and you're not looking after them emotionally. That's another thing, because people think that it's just about covering the emotional needs of a child. Australia is a very individualistic country. When people, like international students, come from African countries, right, sometimes they are used to emotional support from their community, from their parents, and if you withdraw that support, like, these students are gonna find it very tough, and they're gonna fall into the arms of these predatory people who are offering them things that they don't have. So please make sure that you support your child financially, emotionally, and all that, because people do prey, unfortunately, on vulnerable international students. And trust me, this I have seen even from experience when I was studying. I have had some predatory married African men try and just want to get in a relationship or whatever, and these people are married, that their situation, but they just think that no, international students are having it tough. I can offer them a little money, I can offer to pay for their accommodation, I can offer this, I can offer that. If your child is not strong-willed, if your child is, even if they're strong-willed, but if they're at the point that they are so vulnerable that they're gonna do anything that they need to do to survive, they might fall prey to these predators. So please, please, please look out for your children when you send them to study in Australia. And if you're coming to study in Australia, look out for these people. Do not assume that these things only happen in Africa. Do not assume that people have good intentions. Not that all people have good intentions. There are people who are predators. There are people who are in the habit of preying on international students. Those are their candidates of choice. They are looking for international students because they know their vulnerabilities, and then they know themselves that they are predators, and they just want to take something from these students, whether it's sexual favors, whatever it is. They just want something for themselves from these people. They're not willing to be in a long-term relationship with you. They just want to use you for something, for some personal selfish gain, and then they're going to dispose of you. So please, please, please be careful. Look out for the people you associate with. Look out for people's intentions. If you don't feel right about someone's vibes, whatever, just distance yourself from that person. These people are found in all sorts of environments. They are found in social circles, they are found in churches, they are found everywhere. So please, please, please be careful. They are like international students. It's not an easy ride when you come to Australia. And you know, sometimes there's this instinct to want to connect to people, especially from your own community. And sometimes people prey on that instinct, that they know that you're looking for African community, they know that you're looking to connect with African people, and they come disguised as people who want to help you find connections, who want to help adopt you or whatever they want to do. But just be careful. There are some predators. Trust your instincts, and always, like, you know, if someone is not moving in the way that you're comfortable, distance yourself from that person. So yes, guys, that has been the things that I've seen, the things that I've heard about international students coming to Australia. I want international students to have a good experience in Australia. And I know many that have had a good experience in Australia, and I know many that are still having a good experience in Australia. But unfortunately, I know of some that are not having a good experience and some that have not had a good experience. So please, 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 I hope you consider these things seriously, and I hope they help you in your journey if you're looking to become an international student living here in Australia. All right, guys, that's all I had for this video. I will see you in my next one.